Hiya, Stephen.
Hi, Alec. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Thanks
but
for having
this
me.
is the second time we have you on, so this is
Yeah,
quite
I'm back.
interesting. You're,
Like a
you're
bad,
back.
like a bad boomerang. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
you're right. Anyway, listen. The reason I have you back is because this is an ideal time of the year for people, particularly in business planning. But also, we'll talk about the domestic front as well.
Yeah,
Perhaps you might just remind our audience about what got you involved in sustainable energy and
yeah,
when and all of the bits and pieces. So
yeah,
fill
yeah,
in the
yeah.
background.
I have. Yeah, I can remember it. I around 2003, 4, 5, that kind of era. I had a big interest in renewable energy. It always seemed a little bit out of touch though back then because it seemed more for the ESBs or the Bord Gosh Energies, the big guys. But there was changes happening. The price of solar panels was starting to drop fairly substantially and fairly consistently year on year from production being moved out to the Far East and all these other far-flung countries that are able to produce stuff a lot cheaper than ourselves.
Mhm.
So I was watching this happening, and I knew what was going to happen. All of a sudden, renewable energy was going to become something for small companies to get involved in, but also homeowners themselves to get involved in. So um, eventually that kind of tipping point came around 2006, late 2006. I kind of decided, right, we're really getting close to a tipping point here. And renewable energy is going to become as mainstream as any other technology, really. That once it becomes the right price, it's accessible to everybody. So I had studied engineering in college, which sort of gave me the technical understanding of all the different technologies, and it allowed me to kind of see the wood from the trees, let's say. But 2007, early 2007, January actually, decided to take a punt. I left my engineering job,
All
my
right.
good salary, my pension, all the good stuff that was wrapped up in a good job, and I went out and set up Alternative Energy Ireland, January 2007. So we set up facing into challenges. Little did we know the biggest recession the country was ever to face
Right. Yeah.
was just beginning. But it was, obviously a challenging time to set up, but it was also a great time to set up because you only it forced you to look at your overheads, your costs, and to make sure you were able to deliver profit and all those basic things that you forget about in a booming economy. Profit
Sure.
almost just fell into most businesses up to
Right.
then. But yeah, so we set up, and yeah, it was challenging, but it was also a great time to set up a business because you set up on a tight ship.
Yeah, well, I can tell you if you can survive setting up a business in a
Yeah,
recession, yeah, you're well set for the
yeah,
future.
yeah, yeah,
But let's just talk about. I want to talk about it from two different aspects. One is going to be from the business aspect, and the other from the domestic, because a lot of people it crosses both
yeah,
areas and ticks
exactly.
boxes for both of them. Let's just talk, for example, actually. Let's clear the area about grants in business, for example. We'll
Hmm.
come back to domestic in a minute. I'm going to
Yeah.
focus just on business. Let's just talk about grants that are available because I know a lot of business people would be interested, and particularly at this time of the year and the cold weather we're seeing around us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There are different grants available for homeowners, but also for businesses. The ones for businesses are a little bit more unpredictable, and a little bit harder to kind of to get.
Right.
The domestic one is very black and white,
Hmm.
but the commercial one, it can take 12 months, sometimes eight. We've people on our books, we've farmers, we've lots of farmers we engage with,
All
and
right.
we've farmers on our books nearly 18 months now, and they still haven't got clarity on whether they're going to get a grant or not. And it's kind of frustrating because they've made their mind up, they've committed to go ahead with the technology on the basis of getting a grant. We don't provide the grant clarity. SEAI are the government agency that are charged with administering grants. And last year was yeah, quite challenging. We submitted quite a large number of projects for grant approval, and I think about 15% of them got grant approval. So quite frustrating going back to the other 85% with bad
Yeah.
news, and kind of they look upon the whole solar gig as a problem then, when in reality everything else is working ship shape. We have all the technology, we agreed our rates, our prices, our technology installation dates, all that stuff was agreed, but then the grant clarity just let us down at the
Yeah.
last hurdle, let's say.
So
So
this is probably more a challenge around either a European money coming in or the government
yeah,
having
they
money to fund
see,
these sort of projects.
yeah, like we've COVID in town now, so it's the best excuse to kind of hoover up whatever money
Mm,
departments don't need, let's say. And
mm,
we had a change in government recently, which didn't help. But the Greens came in, which in reality should be a help for our sector.
mm.
They should be pushing the grants, but to date, we haven't seen any more clarity coming for
Sure,
applications for 2021. So we're making we're mapping all this out for customers, and we're kind of saying, look, if you need a grant, we can, and you're willing to wait the year and be a little bit uncertain, yeah, let's go that route. But there is a streamlined route which just sidesteps the grant. It's actually cheaper to install a solution that isn't, or a technology that isn't going the grant route, because of all of the administration and
sure.
the additional bits and bobs that have to go with processing a grant. It's actually more expensive than you'd think. And there are kind of invisible fees that SEAI take for processing the grant and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
it's So the grants present a challenge. Our preference is the streamlined route. It's very
yeah.
predictable. Every homeowner, or every business owner, sorry, we
Mm,
can agree a date with them if they sign up today. Us or any of our competitors, we could be on
yeah,
site. We could be on site in a month's time. We could be off site 2 days later, and the savings begin to roll in. It's fairly black and white. You can see the beginning and the end of the project, but when you introduce the grants into it, it's just you've got a public sector agency involved in your pipeline, so they march to their own beat, let's say.
yeah. And also, I mean, I think it's worth just talking about because I became aware that the sort of grant system across Europe is slightly different to here, where it's a declining grant or
Yeah,
subvention, as you might call it.
yeah, for solar especially, the incentive that they have chosen across Europe has generally been a feed-in tariff, which basically says if you produce excess electricity from any renewable source like solar or wind
Mm,
turbines, and you don't need it on site, your business, let's say Saturday or Sunday when the business is closed, that excess electricity spills out onto the grid, and they actually buy it back off you, which makes total sense
yeah,
and logic, and there's no real big discussion needed about that. So that's the method most countries have chosen, and they've all implemented, and lots of them have actually finished a 10-year rollout scheme and all at this stage. We
right.
still haven't even started ours, unfortunately. So the grant system is what we've chosen, which is a cash grant, which on paper looks great, sounds great, but just the unpredictability of getting it is so frustrating. Whereas a feed-in tariff is a much more level playing field. It's a trade. It's you sell us
Yeah,
electricity, we'll buy it off you at X, and we'll sell you electricity at Y, and it's kind of a two-way relationship that the business has then with the power supplier.
sure.
So it's a bit more of a sensible route to go, and there's talk of that starting in July in Ireland.
Right.
So if people have systems installed now, or they want them installed in July, the time to start planning for that is now.
Sure.
There's energy audits need to take place. There's a bit of to and fro, and
Yeah.
site visits, site surveys. Everything's a bit slower these days with COVID in town and all
Yes,
that.
of
So
course. Yeah.
yeah, but like now is the time to start planning for that, to have it installed for July when the feed-in tariff comes. But yeah, hopefully that's going to be a little bit more predictable for businesses, that they're not waiting on the grant. There's just a feed-in tariff to tie up with one of your energy suppliers with. All of them will supply it. Energy, Electric Ireland, any of the power suppliers will offer a feed-in tariff come July this year.
But it looks like it's the way to go forward because
Definitely.
if I understand correctly, a lot of the sort of cash grants in places like the UK and that have declined rapidly over 10
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
which kind of makes them virtually,
yeah.
useless to people.
Yeah, they come in big, and then, like, bear in mind, if you look back to the 80s, there used to be a grant to put in double glazed windows. That's
That's
the
right. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
extreme. They start high, they dwindle down over a
Mm,
few years, but they're at the point now the grants are hard to get in Ireland for solar. So the feed-in tariff is the next kind of incentive in town, but like the earlier you get involved, the higher the feed-in tariff rate will be and all that sort of stuff, because they also start to dwindle over time.
sure.
So, if you're going to sign up and you want to get the grant or the feed-in tariff, the sooner the better, because they are the
Mm,
law of diminishing returns applies, and over the years, the rates just drop and drop, and eventually it's only a really small amount that they actually give you for the electricity you sell to the grid.
yeah. In terms of if we talk about business, what sort of consumption would you need to really starting with? So what would your monthly spend or yearly
Yeah,
spend be to make it worthwhile for you to get involved in this?
like the bigger the better, but bigger with business can be can some people can be overwhelmed and think, geez, I'm not a big business. But
Mm,
the entry level for a business that makes sense is reasonably low. Like if you're spending about €1,000 on every bill, so
right,
even less you can get, because we can actually size a system right down to a domestic size system.
right,
But the return on investment, so the payback from the cost of the installation of the system starts to get attractive if you're spending about €1,000 every bill. So,
right.
anywhere sort of that sort of territory, solar will make perfect sense. Economic sense is what I mean, not anything else.
Yeah. And in terms of payback, what's the sort of average payback on your
Yeah.
investment in a system?
Yeah, solar on its own, a lot of people are doing, and that has a payback of kind of 5 years is the rule of thumb. You can be lucky if you have a particularly straightforward installation and a reasonable size installation, let's say,
Sure.
you could have a payback of about 4.5 years. 5 is the rule of thumb.
Right.
Six is occasional as well, but that's the sort of payback that you're looking at on it.
Yeah.
Um,
So, and your payback, so wow, so you're kind of gaining anything between about 25 and 20,
yeah,
25%
yeah.
savings.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you're making substantial savings on the cost of the electricity. Like if you're buying electricity from the grid at the moment, you're probably spending somewhere in the region of 14 cents for a
Right.
unit of electricity. That's 1 kilowatt hour, or 1 unit of electricity is what we know it
Right.
as. With solar, if you buy your solar system or take a loan out to pay for it, whatever, it'll last you 25 years, and the electricity that comes off that system over the 25 years works out at about 3 to 4 cents per unit.
Wow. Wow.
So essentially, you're block booking, you're paying for your electricity or a portion of your electricity for the next 20 years, 25 years. And it's working out over those, if you spread the cost over those years, at 3 to 4 cents. So it's a dramatic drop in the cost of it. You're gonna need this electricity. There's no getting away from it. You're probably, all things being equal, your electricity demand is going to grow. But even if you stay level and your electricity demand doesn't grow, you're looking at those costs in electricity about 3 to 4 cent the unit rate works out at.
And in terms of electricity costs, how have they been moving in the last decade? Have
Yeah,
they stayed consistent or are they on the increase?
they're on the increase for business. 5% give or take. For homeowners, 7 or 8% of a rise year on year. There's been a couple of years, like the depths of the last recession, there was a substantial drop in oil prices, and that fed
Hmm.
into lower electricity prices. But how we interact with the whole grid is changing relatively dramatically. At the moment, well, to date, what we've had is we've had one electricity generator on our little island, ESB. They've had
Yeah.
a couple of power plants dotted around the country, and they dump electricity onto the grid, and then consumers buy it off them. And it's a fairly
Yeah.
simple business process, but it has its limits. We're interacting with it totally different now. The first step in that, and the first kind of window into the changing world, is everybody's heard about the smart meters.
Hmm.
Everybody knows they're coming. Some people know kind of what they're for. Some people don't really know what they're for at all, but they're coming. They basically have the ability to read your electricity consumption every few minutes. So as opposed to every 2 months, you or one of the ESB guys coming by and reading your meter, every few minutes the meter is read and it's updated. So what that's going to usher in is a change. A variable unit rate is coming. It's coming in the next year or two, and the
Right.
variable unit rate will mean across the day you're going to have higher unit rates and lower unit rates. So
Yeah.
your peak, your 7 to 8 in the morning and your 5 to 7 in the evening, they're going to be the most expensive times to buy electricity. So the smart meter has the ability to meter it down to
Oh,
that
wow.
level.
Yeah.
So we will all, like a variable mortgage.
Hmm.
You rise with the tide and you fall with the tide.
Hmm.
So that's what they're wanting us to do, is to shift our profile, our consumption profile a little bit to help the grid.
Right.
Because everybody's sucking electricity off the grid at the same time isn't good, and then everybody's cookers are turned off at the same time, and everybody's lights go on at the same time, all that sort of this isn't ideal from the grid. It brings fluctuations and it brings headaches in for ESB. So they're wanting us to change our patterns. Electric cars are going to help there, because we can put our electric car plugged in and have it to charge off peak,
Yeah.
or charge through the night when nobody's really consuming electricity. That's perfect for ESB, and it's perfect for the grid, and there's lots of benefits there. So ESB will be selling you electricity cheap at night. Um,
So it's kind of like a congestion charge, really, in
yeah,
traffic. Is
exactly.
that?
Yeah, the congestion on the grid. The congestion is probably a good word. ESB have technical terms for it, but the congestion that's created on the grid, with everybody pulling electricity at the one time and then stopping at the one time, it creates huge imbalances. And the quality of the electricity drops, and just huge challenges for ESB. So what they want is when there's too much electricity on the grid, they need electricity taken off the grid somehow. And we will do that by interacting with ESB or by the grid operator, whoever it is. It's ESB at the moment. And we will allow our electric car to be available to the grid operator, our washing machine to be available to the grid operator. So we can go off to work in the morning and hit a smart on button. The washing machine won't come on until the grid operator says, actually, I need electricity took off the grid in your area. There's too much electricity. The voltage is going up. So what ESB will have through the internet, obviously, is they'll have the ability to switch on, in a very simple term.
So it's going to be a smart way. I mean, sticking with the business, with the business side of it. So what we're looking at is increased charges, but even more pronounced at times when people want to use the electricity. So therefore, bills are just going to go up, I gather.
Bills are going to go up. That's they're trying to, it's the stick approach, unfortunately, is in town. So they put up the price of electricity at different times of the day. Are people going to change their patterns? Some can, some will, some won't. Most won't, to be honest.
They can't really. They need electricity.
I have to cook my dinner at 6 o'clock. I have to shower before I go to work at 7 o'clock or whatever is it. That you can't change that. So the reality is bills are going to increase. So the incentive to install on-site consumption is only going to increase. So that's wind turbines are an option. Solar is a much more common option. It's no moving parts. The cost per kilowatt hour is so simple. Planning is easy to sidestep, all that sort of stuff.
So just sticking with the business side of it, in terms of business, obviously going to use that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that no moving parts in 25 years. So do you have to kind of go out every year, or does somebody have to get somebody to come out every year to service their solar system?
Not really. No. If you install a solar system, there's an inspection carried out on it every 2 to 3 years. That's just to verify that the system's working to its optimal output. These systems are all connected online these days, so there's online portals that the business owner, but also ourselves have access to, and we're able to monitor the output and check for faults, all that stuff. So we can fix a lot of them remotely. Some of them require a site visit, some of them just require a fuse may have blown or something simple. So all that stuff is manageable. It's done by ourselves. That's what we've an online portal here with every single business owner and homeowner that have bought solar with us. And as a fault pops up, we see it, we contact them, or we send someone.
So it's kind of fairly robust.
Fairly robust, yeah. It's fairly locked down at this stage. All that sort of stuff. That technology's been around for a few years now, and it's almost just being refined now every year. But it's very much fit for purpose to monitor this stuff remotely.
And also, if I'm correct from my notes, you sort of formed a relationship with a large international supplier, which has kind of quite exciting news and all sorts of benefits for people who get involved in that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we partnered with Autarco in 2020. Autarco are a company from the Netherlands. They're based in Holland, so they are a solar manufacturer. So they manufacture the entire solar system. Right. Like a solar system has 3 components, and typically what all other manufacturers do is they buy components from 3 separate companies and make a kit, and generally it works reasonably well. But you've company A, company B, company C making a kit. What Autarco have done is quite exciting. They're the only, believe it or not, the only solar panel manufacturer in the world that makes the entire system. Right. So they make the 3 main components. So you don't have this company ABC thing. You've just one company, Autarco. So they have a single branded solution. So every component has been tested working with all the other components and all that kind of, good stuff. But what that brings to the table is absolute clarity from Autarco's point of view as to how the system's going to perform. And what they've done then on this is they've doubled down on their knowledge, and they've brought something that's quite exciting. They've actually brought the world's only kilowatt hour guarantee. It's an output. Wow. It's an output guarantee. So Autarco, what they do is they say, let us be involved in the design process, let us monitor the installation, and you install as per agreed specifications and all that stuff with all our products. We'll guarantee the output from that system for the end user.
Oh wow.
So let's say we promise an installation, a manufacturing business, we're going to save you 10 grand a year. Okay. And year 1 finishes and they only saved 9 grand. Autarco actually cut a check for the shortfall.
Wow.
So that's how confident they are in the output from their system. It's brilliant. It's really clever. It's so unique, and why none of the other manufacturers do it is, I find it mind-boggling, because that's how you should buy solar. You should buy it with it's an investment.
Yeah.
You're not buying solar panels, you're buying electricity savings. You're trying to save your business, save your house money. And Otarco they de-risk, they take all the ifs and buts and the maybes out of the equation and say, we guarantee the output from our system. It's it's really exciting. We're looking forward to rolling it out all across 2021 and onwards with them. Great company to deal with. They're Dutch, so they're very straightforward, very easy to deal with. So
but I think the guarantee certainly makes an impact. And how does it kind of work in Ireland? Because I mean, we're not always blessed with sunshine and bright days. So are they still able to provide the same guarantees for consumers here?
Absolutely, yeah. They know the average amount of sunshine that hits every square meter of the Earth. So no matter where you are, if you're Antarctica, down in Africa or anywhere, they know how much on average that square meter of roof space or ground space should receive, and they're able to monitor it. Like, you get good years and bad years, but over time the average always prevails. So they know, like with a system in Ireland, what you might do versus a system in Morocco is you might have a few more panels you'll have more panels on the same to achieve the same output in Ireland. But absolutely, you can guarantee it in Ireland, and it's something they've done, relatively really successfully all over the world, and they've just moved into Ireland now and partnered with ourselves. So yeah, we're quite excited about that.
And for our listeners there, where could they find more details about all of this? For the commercial side of it, anyway.
Yeah, we've two websites. The commercial website is aeicommercial.ie. There's plenty of information in there about other technologies that we do as well, other solutions and tips and grants and all that sort of stuff that's available and relevant nowadays. But our contact details are on that website, aeicommercial.ie. Give us a shout. We've no problem in actually calling out and assessing sites, doing energy surveys, energy audits, all free of charge.
All right, that's fantastic. Before we move away from the commercial side, is there anything else you just wish to say around that? That's not overly salesy.
No, we've kind of covered a lot of it there. The change in how businesses interact with the grid is a big one, and that's going to come with additional costs. So, solar becomes more relevant. The partnership with Otarco is something we're really excited about. So that's something that any business owner who wants to make a smart investment with no risk should consider going with Otarco and Alternative Energy Ireland.
All right, fantastic. Great ad, get it in there.
Yeah.
As we move on to the domestic, you alluded in the earlier part that the grant system is far more straightforward and available. So tell us a bit more about that for the domestic side of the market.
Yeah, the domestic side of things, it's a bit more black and white. You apply for your grant, you get approval within a day, and you're told to proceed within 6 months. And you do the work within 6 months and you submit your final commissioning paperwork and the homeowner gets the grant. It's just very predictable, and why that inspiration wasn't taken into the commercial side of things is kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. So the homeowner just applies for the grant. We send you a link, a web link, you apply for the grant. It takes about 2 minutes. You get an email, the homeowner gets an email, and we get an email when the grant is approved. It's always approved within 24 hours. And as I say, you have 6 months then to proceed. The grant is then deducted. We deduct the grant off the bill. So let's say the price is €100 and there's a €20 grant. You just pay €80 to us then, or whatever the numbers are. But that's
so you handle the paperwork.
We handle all the paperwork and the risk around the grant. So if it's not installed correctly and the grant's SEI decide we're not paying the grant for whatever reason, that's on our head, not on the homeowners. So it's peace of mind is all we're trying to give to people, basically, if they're looking to proceed with a technology installation.
You were talking about that it's likely to impact on the homeowners as well, is this whole variable charge with electricity. So it's about having a smart home and the costs associated. Again, sort of maybe just talk again to our listeners about a couple of the variations and options that people have, what they can do in their home at a reasonable cost.
Yeah, like if you're a homeowner, the obvious things is changing patterns, but that requires no investment, but it does require rethinking how you interact with how you use your electricity. And we've heard all about that, changing your thermostat down by 1 degree saves you 10%, and all those simple changes. I'd like to think by now most people have made whatever changes are possible, and they're kind of part of their life now at this stage. The next one would be to change obvious, the consumption. So if you're buying a new washing machine, you're buying a new, they all have a lifetime. We need to buy a new one. Look at the energy rating of it when you're buying the appliance. Obviously, we all should have LED at this stage. There's no excuse for still having the old bulbs waiting for them to blow, because
Right.
they just cost you 10 times the amount in electricity. So they don't make any sense, the old light bulbs. Even the CFLs are questionable, but the LED now, the quality of light and all that sort of stuff we get from them, you can leave them on all year and not lose a wink of sleep that they're costing you much to run. So they're the obvious simple things you can do. The next is obviously insulation, heating system upgrades. They're more invasive and involving, and you're kind of, maybe if you're doing an extension, you might consider to go the whole hog and insulate the rest of the house at the same time and put in a whole new heating system. But they're the higher cost, higher commitment scale of things that you can do. The more mid-table stuff that we would recommend is generate your own solar. It's quite very much the norm nowadays. The SEAI scheme for domestic solar PV grants is their busiest grant scheme.
Oh, right,
that they do.
right.
Yeah,
and what does it involve for people, and how does it work for them?
Yeah, like some companies have took a one size fits all, and some very well known brands and companies have took a one size fits all approach for homeowners. So they ring some of these companies, they ask for, I want to get solar in. Okay, yeah, it's here, it's 10 grand. We know nothing about you, your consumption. A much better approach and a more wholesome approach is to look at the consumer's consumption profile. How much electricity are they using? Are they using it in the day, or are they using it in the night? Are they busy users, or do they go away for the summer, down the country and they're not at the house? So is a battery suitable, or is a battery not suitable? Because there's all these different options and twists and turns. So we offer all the different various twists and turns that are out there, but we always try to find the most suitable solution for somebody. So we would look at consumption profile, the amount of roof space available, the orientation of the roof. That's the sort of stuff you need to look at to size a system correctly. And then you size your system, then you price your system, and then hopefully we can agree, they've gone to, they can agree a price for it. And it typically takes, as I say, 24 hours to get the grant in place. The next step then is to book in an installation. And that is, with ourselves anyway, is a 1-day install. We're in and out, done by 5 o'clock. And from straight away, the system is working that evening. It's generating electricity if it's still bright, if not this time of year, but soon enough, hopefully now when the clocks go forward again, it's generating as we're pulling out the driveway. So that's it for the next 25. They have a lifespan of 30 years. They've outputs are guaranteed for 20-25 years. So they're very reliable. When anything that comes with a 25-year output guarantee is pretty reliable piece of technology. So they have a life expectancy of 30-35 years. So it's on your roof. If it's your house for the foreseeable, definitely a wise investment. If it's a stepping stone house, and it's your first house and you're planning on moving in 5 years, maybe solar mightn't be the right move for that type of house.
Again, you can assess that out. And for people who are interested in the domestic side, where should they find more
we've our website, AEI.ie. That's targeted at the homeowners, and lots of stuff in there about different technologies that homeowners might consider, the more common technologies that homeowners do consider, like ventilation, heating systems, the different types of solar for hot water. There's some solar systems that generate hot water. If you have a load of teenagers that like 20-minute showers, well, we've got a solution there to help save money. Or if it's electricity is your big bone of contention, different solar systems there that suit that.
And just to wrap up in 30 seconds, because, wow, that's been a quick interview. In terms of finance, is there finance available for both the commercial and domestic market? Or
Yeah, there is actually. And it's a good point. Money's actually never been cheaper at the moment. It's historically low, the cost of borrowing. So there's various different options we have. If people ring us, we'll go through them. But everything from your main lender banks, credit unions, they're all very, very low interest rates at the moment. So that's for the homeowners. For the commercial market, we have 3 or 4 different options for leasing, for loan, for raising debt. There's various different models that we can come up with depending on the technology and the solution, and we'll always find something to suit each business or homeowner.
Fantastic.